Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Lewis with the 7 Minute Life. And as many of you know, I founded this as a time management company, but it has become so much more. If you get everything done, that's great. And time is important. But today you are going to be hearing from one of my favorite encouragers, someone that has taken the 7 Minute Life to an entirely new level. Today, we're going to be talking about George Degnon. We're going to share his story. And what you're going to have the opportunity to physically see is how George has taken the 7 Minute Life and has physically lived it all of his life before he ever met me, before anything else happened. And we're going to walk through his actual exercises and hear his life's wisdom and listen to how God has used him on this earth. And so, George, I am delighted to have you here. It's an extraordinary time in your life. And I'm so grateful for your friendship and for all that you do. So I would like to start with the story of you choosing to go into the priesthood. And then I really want to just hear your entire story of from that point on to working to your mission in life and then to where you are today. So George, welcome to the 7 Minute Life.
Well, thank you, Allyson. Thank you so much. I'm really excited with this opportunity to share some of the wonderful gifts I've received in life and hopefully pass them on so others can benefit. When I was a youngster, grammar school, I was a hellion. I was always in trouble. I think every day I was in the principal's office for something. And my constant plea was, can I have a second chance? And I look back at that and I just think it was, I never thought I'd amount to much because I was just mischievous. I did silly little things for the fun of it. And unfortunately, sometimes it hurt people, and that I'm regretful of. But it was a wonderful way to grow up because it, I don't know, I just felt so empowered. I felt that, I could control my own destiny, so to speak, and thought about what I wanted to do when I grow up. This is when I was in the 8th grade. I went to a Catholic grammar school. And every Friday they would bring a priest in to talk to the boys and a nun to talk to the girls about, where we're going with our lives and the beauty of being a priest and what it meant to be a priest. And that kind of ideal attracted me because basically a priest is there to help people. He commits his life to helping others. And that was something I thought I would like to do. So I was 14 years old and I told my parents I'd really like to go away to the seminary. And to my surprise, they said, okay. So now what, so 14 years old, we packed up. They brought me to the train station in Newark, New Jersey. And I got on a train and met a bunch of priests and a bunch of other guys. And the train was going to Atlanta. And then from Atlanta, we went on to Columbus. And then in Columbus, we got on buses and trucks and they drove us probably 30, 40 miles out into the wilderness of Alabama, where there was a seminary, a minor seminary. It was 4 years of high school and 2 years of college. And it was for young men who wanted to become priests. And that was the way they recruited candidates in those days. It was probably not a very successful way to do it because I think over the years, more people left than stayed. And so they've refined that process now. Now I think they wait until you're after college before you invite you into the seminary. But in those days, it was a high school experience. And for me, it was the richest part of my life. I can't say so much. I can't say enough about how good it was for me in terms of character formation, in terms of study habits, desire to learn, the camaraderie of a bunch of other guys. There were about 30 of us in the freshman class. Today, my support group is 9 of those guys. We still communicate daily with each other. We encourage each other. We've all gone through our own little life crises. And it's just such a beautiful experience to have that network of support beyond all the others that I have that I've accrued since then, especially my family. But those days in Holy Trinity, we went in September to school and we didn't come home until June. So we spent Christmas away from home, and that was an experience. It was a joyous experience. Christmas is so different for me because of that. We'd close school for a week and we'd go out in the woods, we'd cut down trees, we'd get the virgin pines, we'd make garlands, we'd decorate the chapel, we decorated our dormitory where we slept. We cut, live trees and put them in our rec room, decorated them. And the spirit was just so joyous. It was really about Christ's birthday. And we wanted to have a heck of a party for him, and for us too. So that's kind of my foundation. And today I'm still affiliated with that community of priests and brothers. It's called the Missionary Servants of the Most Holy Trinity. And the founder was a Vincentian priest named Father Thomas Judge. And there's a high school in Philadelphia named after Father Judge High School. But that community, those priests, when I joined, the mission was to serve the South, to serve the poor, to serve the disenfranchised, to serve those who were looking for spirituality in their lives. It was a beautiful mission and something I identified with as a youngster, something I wanted to grow up and do. So I spent 2.5 years there, my full first year, my full second year, and part of my third year. And in my third year, I kept talking to my spiritual director about girls and how I kind of, really didn't know what dating was like, but I'd like to try it. So, and I guess I mentioned it enough times. One day he said to me, George, you keep talking about girls. And he said, that also is a vocation. Marriage is a very important vocation. And if that's for you, that's wonderful too. So how about if you'd like to go back home, go date girls, see what it's like. And, if it doesn't work out, if it's not what you thought it was, you can come back. So I said, well, that sounds good. That sounds fair. So I did that. I left, came home, and I dated every girl in the girls' high school in town. So it was kind of a making up for lost time, I guess. But it was just so much fun. I just really enjoyed dating and, growing up as a boy and doing the things boys and girls do. And so that's kind of my foundation. And as I said, I'm still affiliated with that community today. I help them organize a group, we call it Mission Partners. And it's all former seminarians who we send letters to saying, would you like to come? And we've done 2 trips to Puerto Rico following the hurricanes down there. We've helped people rehabilitate their damaged homes, their flooded homes, their rotted out floors, their rotted out kitchen, their cabinets and their countertops. And Puerto Rico has a lot of humidity and they have a lot of termites. And so many of the homes, they can't even use their kitchen cabinets or their countertops because if they put the dishes in, the thing would just fall apart. So we went into many homes and tore all that out and replaced it with the PVC kind of plastic wood furniture, cabinets and countertops, and kind of made everyday living a little more enjoyable for people. Again, fixed roofs so they wouldn't be leaking. We repainted apartments or homes for people. We repainted 2 or 3 chapels. Each community has its own little chapel in Puerto Rico. And we repainted those so they could worship in a cleaner, nicer, fresher place. And it's been just so much fun. We've done 2 trips to Puerto Rico. We now have one schedule coming up in October. We're going to Mississippi, to the poor parts of Mississippi and the Camden, Compton, forget the other town. That area is kind of in central Mississippi. people live in trailers there. And a lot of people, they said they needed help for safe and secure housing. So I didn't know what that meant. So I asked them, and I was thinking maybe they need a neighborhood watch program or something. And turns out that the campers develop leaks in the roof. The leaks damage the floor. The wood on the floor becomes weak. And then people have been falling through the floor in their campers. So I contacted the Recreational Vehicle Association about how to rehab that. And we've developed a plan. I've shared it with the group. I won't be going as one of the workers on this trip because of my health condition, but I've got it all set up, and the guys are going to be going. They're going to replace the floors in these trailers for people, put fresh new marine plywood in so that the floors will be safe, and fix the roofs. We found out what the products are, depending on the type of camper, the products we would put on the roof to block the leaks. So people will, be able to enjoy life a little bit better down there. That's the upcoming trip. But it's so exciting to be looking for things we can do to help other people, And so the missionary servants with their missions, they're now throughout the southern United States and in many northern cities too. They're also very present in Central America and in some countries in South America. So it's a community that's growing. It's a little over 100 priests and brothers, maybe about 140 priests and brothers. And they're spread throughout North and Central and South America now, northern part of South America. And they do wonderful work. They minister to the folks for their temporal needs and, more importantly, for their spiritual needs. They create community organizations, parishes. They teach the people how to set up the structure where the people run the parish. They're the governing bodies, and priests are the ministers for the sacraments and the spiritual healing. So it's a big part of my life to be a member of that. And it's amazing how for so many years I've just been, fulfilled by working with them and through them, and far cry from the little kid in the seminary, but it has been my life and big part of it.
George, it's such a wonderful story. And as a young man, when you left the seminary, you certainly never left your faith, but you did meet someone and married and had children who have become my friends as well. And so God had other plans for your life in many ways. But I want to also share with the listeners that when you went to Puerto Rico, when you felt that need, how old were you when you began the Puerto Rico? And did you actually go to Puerto Rico to help with this? What age were you when you did that?
Well, this has all been in the past few years. The first trip to Puerto Rico was pre-COVID, so it was like 3 or 4 years ago. It emanated when we learned that a lot of the homes in Puerto Rico that were damaged from the hurricane were not rehabilitated by FEMA. And I couldn't understand why they would fix some and not others. And the reason is, in Puerto Rico, they don't keep land records the way we do in the States. And FEMA was only allowed to help a homeowner rehab their home. So the people have to have the ownership papers. They have to be able to show that the property is in their name. And the city hall doesn't keep those records. So many people don't have proof that they own the home they're in. It's handed down from generation to generation. And so FEMA would help people who could show they were the owners, but the others they left. And so there was this big need there. So I thought, that's really not fair to those people. Let's go help them. So that's how it evolved. And so it was, like I say, just about 4 or 5 years ago. So then I was, probably, my recent birthday, I just turned 28. So that was back when I was a teen 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, now I'm gonna share your age. You're actually, how old are you actually?
82, yeah.
82. So this mission that you took was when you were 78 or so.
late 70s. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And did you
And we,
actually go to Puerto Rico?
oh
And
yes, we went there. We had about probably around 20 fellas and two or three women, two or three spouses came along, and we helped in several different communities. Kubai, which is a very small, poor town, not far from the airport, not far from the main airport in Puerto Rico. Then we went up in the mountains up, I can't remember the name of the town now, it's a shame. But yeah, we had two or three work sites where we did the rehab work that we did to help the folks. And so it was fun. It was fun. And in Mississippi now, I don't know how many we're going to have. The call is out now for people to sign up. And that trip will be in October. So
I absolutely love that. So, George, how did you come across the 7-Minute Life, and how did we become friends? It's a great story.
Gee, you're going to have to help me because I'm
Okay,
having,
well,
yeah.
I can tell that story. So,
Sure.
George, you tried to order a book, The 7-Minute Difference, online, and you were struggling with it. Our system was down, the website store was down, and so you called. We had a short conversation, and I just sent you the book as a gift, and you read it, and you were so passionate about it because of it aligned with your mission in life, and we became friends, and you've been a huge advocate for what we're doing. And so I do want to do you remember that story?
Now I do. Yes, I do. Yeah. And it
Yeah,
wasn't your
it's
problem. It wasn't the system wasn't working. It was that I'm a dinosaur when it comes to computers.
so
Yeah.
this, I'm going to hold this up, but the 7-Minute Life, kind of where I think where your interest has come is that you are very purpose oriented, and by taking these tools and physically being able to write down the things that matter to you has made a difference in your life. So can you share a little bit about why that's important to you?
Well, so often we think about what we want to do and we make plans. And then with the busyness of life, it kind of gets lost. And the beauty of the 7-Minute Life, I mean, I just love it. It's just been so helpful for me. Is you write it down and it's there. And my favorite books are the several workbooks I have now for 7-Minute Life. I've been using it for 3 or 4 years, and I've never felt as fulfilled as I have in these last few years. I mean, the tiniest little detail, call somebody about something. I put it on my do list for tomorrow, and then I do it. It's not like 6 months later saying, oh gosh, I've never called so-and-so, So it works. It just makes such a difference in my life, writing it out, having it there, identifying it. And sometimes it's not a little thing, it's a big thing. And with the 7-Minute Life and little exercises, I take an issue and I can break it down into pieces. I can identify the things I need to do first, second, and third, and a progression to accomplish that particular objective. So it's just, to me, it's the best guidance materials I've had. And I had one other experience many, many years ago, kind of at the pinnacle of my career. I was trying to decide what I wanted to do next in life. And I decided I did the exercise was what color is your parachute? It was a book written by a pastor, a priest, not a priest, a minister. And the minister, became ordained in his community, and he thought he'd always have a job because they always needed a priest in the parishes. And it so happened that his community terminated his contract, and he was lost. He was dumbfounded. He didn't know what to do. And he took his life experience there and wrote out how to, decide what you want to do in life. That's what color is your parachute. It's very similar in some ways to 7-Minute Life. But I had identified back in those days 10 career goals or 10 life goals that I wanted to accomplish. And I had written them out and had, subsets of steps to take to get started on it. And life went on and I pursued some of them. And it was probably 20 years later, maybe 25 years later, that I was going through my bookcase one day and I saw the 7-Minute Life. I mean, saw the What Color Is Your Parachute book. And I said, oh, that was one of my favorites. And I pulled it out and folded in there with the 2 or 3 pages, the final 2 or 3 pages with my goals and my steps. And I was really dumbfounded that like about 7 or 8 of them I had already accomplished. And so it proved to me the value of writing things down. And that's what again, back to 7-Minute Life, that's why it's so valuable. And those books are so easy to keep. They're so well organized. And I can find things that I, was thinking about 6 months ago. I can easily go back and find that stuff and, re-engage in things that I might have been doing back then, if that's important now. But it's just, it's good. I guess I'd call it my crutch. It's kind of like my crutch in life, because I know as long as I have that, I'm going to be moving forward.
You and I were talking recently, and you're a walking miracle to begin with. And you developed cancer, I'm not sure how many years ago, but I want to hear that story. And the reason this conversation is so remarkable is because of what's happened in just the last few weeks. So can you take us through that journey? Because the people that are listening to this, so I'm going to give them a little head start on it. But after they hear your story, as I'm looking at what you've written today, one of your goals is to learn Spanish. You have such powerful goals right now in life. So can you take us back to your journey of health?
Sure. Well, I was healthy, very active, independent. I was on top of the world. The good Lord just gave me so many blessings and graces. And, I was hard charging just like everybody else. I couldn't get everything in 24/7. So I just kept pushing more and more. But I was, going along happy as a pig in mud, so to speak. And I had some health issues, and I went and had a biopsy, and they identified that I had stage 4 cancer, prostate cancer, that had already spread throughout my body. And they sent me to the National Institutes of Health up in Bethesda, to NIH, to the cancer center there, and they broke my case down for me. They took pictures, can't remember what they were, MRIs or CTs or whatever, X-rays. But they put my film of my skeletal structure, my body, on the X-ray box and said, you see all those little white lights? Your body looks like a Christmas tree. Those lights are where there are tumors in your body. And it was throughout my skeletal structure. It was throughout all my lymph nodes. And they said, well, we have a regimen for you. We think we can help you. So I learned about clinical trials when they told me, well, first of all, when I was diagnosed, they said I had 1.5 to 2 years to live. And that wasn't for me personally, that was the general diagnosis at that point. This is in 2011. The life expectancy was up to 2 years for men with metastatic prostate cancer. So I decided I was going to try to fight it. I wasn't going to take it laying down. So I did reading, I talked to a lot of people, and I found that there's a program, what they call clinical trials. It's where people volunteer to be the guinea pigs to the testing of new drugs that are under development. And I thought, I want to do that. I said, it might help me, but more importantly, it's going to help the people coming behind me. So I'm willing, my time is limited. I'm willing to commit that to trying to help find a cure for cancer. So I did that, and I engaged in 4 different clinical trials. And they were immensely helpful to me. It kept me alive. I beat all the odds. And I'm still here today. Now, recently, just about a month ago, I went and received one of the wonder drugs that has just been approved by Food and Drug Administration, FDA, has approved a drug called Pluvicto. And Pluvicto is a drug that's infused like chemo. You get an infusion. The chemical goes throughout your body, and the part of the chemicals attached to the cancer cells. And along with that is another drug that then kills the cancer cells as they're forming. So we are now at a point in medical science where they have treatments that are killing the drugs, killing the cancers as they start reproducing. Cancer is where your reproductive process just goes out of control. It keeps producing more and more of these tumorous cells, these disease cells in your body. And now there's a mechanism for killing that. So that's where I am in my treatment process. But I went for that first treatment. The drug is called Pluvicto. It's a radium drug. It's the technical people, it's lutetium-177. But at any rate, that drug is, well, when I went to get that drug, I was wobbling. I said, I feel like a drunken sailor on shore leave. My mind and my legs were not connected. And it was weird. I couldn't walk straight. And the doctor said, I don't like that, George. So I got my treatment. And when treatment was over, he said, George, you need to go to the emergency room right away and get an MRI. So I went and got an MRI. He said, you can do it on an outpatient basis, but go to the hospital first. Don't even go home. So I went to the hospital. I had the MRI, and they immediately came in and told me that they were going to operate on me tomorrow morning, that I had a problem with my vertebrae in my up by my neck, at the top of the vertebrae 1, 2, and 3, the T vertebrae. 1 was rotted out, 2 was in the process of being rotted out, and number 3 had so much tumor on it, it had shifted into the spinal canal, and it was compressing my spinal cord. And one of the doctors said, I was lucky that I got there when I did. I was within hours or days of losing the use of my legs forever. So I've had a major disruption. I can't walk right now. I have to use a walker. And yesterday they just told me I can't go outside walking. If I go outside, I need to be in a wheelchair. So that's kind of a blow to a healthy guy who loves being active. But at any rate, that's now, today we really need to take some time out to understand what's going on in our lives and in our society too. And when I went to the hospital, I said, I'm going to use this as an opportunity. I'm not going to complain. It's not a problem. This is an opportunity for me to collect my thoughts and decide who I am and where else I want to be going with life. So I used the program, the 7-Minute Life, years ago, I had done my priorities and my exercises, and I did it again recently. And that's what Allyson has, what she was referring to. So I just love to be goal directed. I love to know where I want to get, and I like to know when I get there. And that's, again, why 7-Minute Life is so important to me. But I used that time in the hospital, put the TV remote in the drawer. I didn't touch it for the 4 days I was there. And I just relished the quiet, the peace. And I realized that our life is just so crazy. We can't do enough. We're always searching, we're always driving. Now, when I was a kid, I grew up in the 1940s during the Second World War. And as a youngster, on a Sunday, there were 2 things you could do. You could go to church and you could go to the bakery. And people did that. They went to the church. After church, they went to the bakery. There used to be lines down the street at the bakery, buy their buns and muffins and rolls. And they would go home and have their lunch. And then in the afternoons, people sat on their porches. Other people walked the neighborhood. And we were all talking with neighbors. My dad used to take me every Sunday to walk with him. And my dad was a very popular guy in the neighborhood. And everybody loved him. He helped everybody. That's where I get it from too, by the way. But it was just so peaceful. It was kind of a day where you rested and you had time for your neighbors, you had time for your own thoughts. We don't have that today in our society. We're just running crazy 24/7, 365 days a year. And I go back to creation story where, the good Lord created the world, the earth, created man, put us on earth. And he did it in 6 days. And he said, and the seventh day is for rest. And we had a charge from him to use Sundays as a day of rest. Now, we did it a long time ago. We did it 70 years ago, 80 years ago. We don't do it today. And I'm firmly convinced that we can change our society. We can make life more meaningful. We can help our neighbors if we just slow down a little bit, take a little bit of quiet time every day, 5 or 10 minutes. So what am I going to accomplish today? What's important? How am I going to help my neighbor? I just think if more people practiced random acts of kindness and did little things for a neighbor, we would be such a richer society. And so that's kind of the message I like to share with people based on my experience, because I found that there really is fulfillment in giving. When you give and you help someone, you just feel so much better inside, and you're a better person for it. And those with a faith-based, you have that opportunity to feel God's touching your life very directly by helping a neighbor. And that's, again, 7-minute life. You plan, what am I going to do tomorrow in the evening? And think of a neighbor. What can you do? Maybe a neighbor just needs a visit. Maybe you can, get them some buns at the bakery or whatever it might be. There's just so many little things we can do for others. And if we would all do those little things for others, I'm convinced we'll change the face of society. Our country is kind of messed up right now. They say we have a disposable economy, that if something breaks, they don't fix it anymore. We throw it out and get a new one. But for people, you can't do that. For people, a broken person can be rehabbed, and a broken person can be beautiful, and a broken person can be functional. So for those who are struggling and have issues, I say, take some time out, find some quiet time to talk to your creator, whatever you may refer to him as or her, and get into the meaning of life, get into what you can do to help yourself. And many years ago, I spent a year in depression. So I know what it's like. I've suffered, and it was not pleasant. It was a lot of hard work to get through it, but believe me, it's worth it. So don't ever give up, just work at it. The other thing, my experience here, so I had this spinal cord compression. I can't walk anymore. I have a walker and I take baby steps to get around. I had, for those vertebrae problems, I had 10 doses of radium beam therapy. It's nuclear medicine treatments. I've got scars on my body from the radiation. I think it'll clear, but that radiation goes into the bones and kills the cancer in my bones. And then that Pluvicto drug I'm taking, that's kind of a general treatment. So it works over time. It's 6 treatments over 36 weeks. Every 6 weeks, you get an infusion. When I get the infusion, I'm radioactive for several days. I can't go near people. I can't go near pregnant women or children, women lactating. So you have to keep your distance. It's really high-powered stuff. And I'm actually radioactive. When I was going for those treatments with the radium beam therapy, they met me at the hospital door every day with a Geiger counter to see what my reading was. And early on, they had to escort me and move people away as I went down the hall. But after about a week, then you're back to a lower level. And so, but little aside, but my point is that with a major diagnosis, anybody who has a major diagnosis does not need to walk alone with that. There are helps out there. There are support groups, there are professionals, there are counselors, there's information on the website, sometimes too much information almost, but whatever the condition, today is more likely that it's more of a speed bump in life than the end, the final wall, so to speak. So even in my case, as incapacitated as I might be, and as difficult as things are for me now, because I mean, my hardest thing is I'm just so physically active. I love to be in the yard. I cut my firewood. I create my own mulch. I just do everything, and I just love it. But now I can't go out there. I can't move. And but I'm rich in other ways, and that's what counts. And again, back to 7-minute life. It's when I say, what am I going to do now? I just pull my little daily planner out and look to see what's next. So, and it's all the things I have on that are all focused and directed toward fulfilling what are my life ambitions. And these projects, like in Puerto Rico and some of these other things, they came out of quiet moments and time reflecting on what I'm going to do long term. I put that on my do list, and then during the day I may take that and play with it as a project. The other thing I do, I'm a volunteer with St. Vincent de Paul Society, which is a community of people who help our neighbors in distress, financial distress mostly. Somebody gets sick, they don't go to work, they don't get a paycheck, or they only get a partial paycheck. They can't pay their rent, they can't buy the food, they can't pay their utility bills. So St. Vincent de Paul helps folks with that. And there's two kinds of poverty. There's generational poverty, where generation after generation, they're basically on welfare. And then there are also temporary poverty, where people get sick or for some other reason don't have the resources to meet their daily needs. And so St. Vincent de Paul steps in and helps with that. And one of the issues that I have with the process of helping the poor is it's great to help them. It's great to be there to lend them a hand to get through their temporary crisis. But so many people are victims of our economy, so to speak. So many people, I don't meet a lot of poor people that are lazy. Most poor people I know from my experiences, they have two jobs. They have a minimum wage job, and then they work weekends at something else, and that's minimum wage. They're never going to catch up. They're never going to be at the level they need to be in terms of having the income to meet the needs of an ordinary existence. And so I've gotten very excited about what St. Vincent de Paul calls systemic change programs. And systemic change means doing something in somebody's life that changes their life circumstance. So I met with a group of people back about 6 or 7 years ago. There were several of us. We got together. We talked about what could we do to create a systemic change program. Help people get jobs, better paying jobs. We went through all sorts of things. We came out with the idea of creating a microloan program, because I had read a book by a fellow named Muhammad Yunus, Y-U-N-I-S. Muhammad Yunus is from Bangladesh. He was an economist, and he was teaching economy to graduate students in India or in Bangladesh. And he challenged them. He said, every day we come here to class, we walk through the mall. There's people there who are selling little wooden statues or wicker baskets or straw hats and things like that. And he said, have we ever thought about what their life might be like and what they need to have a better life for themselves? And so the students got excited about it. They decided to study the people. They talked with them. They found out and they would pay a loan shark the equivalent of a penny to get the straw they needed to make a hat. And they'd make the hat, and they have to give it back to the loan shark, and he'd give them a bag of rice for their evening meal for the family. And Eunice and the students said, they decided, if we could give each of those people the basic funding that they needed to buy that product so that they could sell it, they'd pay a penny for the goods, but then they could sell it for 2 pennies. And they could buy enough to make 4 of those, and they could sell, and then they'd have 8 pennies. And it was kind of a progression. And so they started this microloan program. Well, actually, they just gave all of those people in that village mall what they needed, a block of wood or a stack of straw or whatever it might have been. And so they went on and made their products, and then they sold the products, and then they had the money, and they became independent. And some of them grew, and some of them hired neighbors to work with them. So it's a fascinating story. So we created a microloan program here, and it had been in existence. I had heard of 2 or 3 other places where there was such programs. I contacted those folks, got their information, and then I wrote a 10-year plan for our loan program. And we're now in year 4 of our loan program. We've lent out over $40,000. Did all the fundraising. There was a story about our project in the community paper, and people sent us money. We put the story in trying to get the word out about the loans so people would know they'd be available. We could do it. And in turn, what we got were gifts, and that gave us a treasury to start making these loans. We started out, we'd give people $1,000. We've upped it to $2,000. And we have some amazing stories to tell. I just, as a matter of fact, last week I was wondering about how we could grow our program. And I got word that there was a philanthropist who had donated money to an organization in Texas to help develop strategic systemic change programs. So while I wasn't feeling that well, I took a couple of days and put stuff together. I did an 8-page grant proposal. I submitted it, and 3 or 4 days later, I got word that we were awarded $20,000. So now I'm talking with Catholic Charities in Virginia here to bring this program to other communities throughout Northern Virginia to help people. But we have, with $2,000, there's some just amazing stories we can tell, and it's all in my report. And I got the idea now I'm contacting the people we've lent money to who have already paid it all off to give me a paragraph or 2 about how it helped them, how it changed their life. So I hope to have a much richer, more robust story to tell. But right now I have 4 or 5 stories in my grant proposal that I'm going to change now, turn it around and make it a report to our donors. So all the people who have donated to us, some of them still send us checks periodically, and it's from all over the country. People somehow read about us and our story. So it's just so exciting. And that is making real change in people's lives. It's just amazing.
And all of these things that you're telling me, you are still making long-term goals. And one of my favorite stories is that every day you make it a habit to send out several emails to your friends and people you may not know that well, just to tell them about the beauty of life and that they're beautiful and how kindness and compassion can make a difference. And even in the last few weeks, thank you for sharing the health story that you've been up to. But in the last few weeks, you've received some devastating news. And it was at that point that you actually called me and said, "Hey, Allyson, I've been in the hospital and I've just redone my priorities and my purpose. Can you tell us about what's happened recently and how that devastating news is still maybe making you even more purposeful in life?"
With all the things that are going on with the spinal cord compression, that's one problem. The cancer in my bones is another problem. And then just recently I had a test because I've had an awful lot of pain lately. Bone pain, cancer bone pain is really crushing. But at any rate, they wanted to see what might be the source of that pain. And in the process with the scans, they found that the cancer has migrated to my liver. So I now have, another chapter in terms of the cancer having spread to a soft tissue organ, which is usually, problematic. But it's not going to slow me down. And I still have things I want to do. And as long as the the good Lord has given me the time. My prayer is at the end, it says, and Lord, help me through so that I may serve others for my remaining days. So I'm asking for time, not for me, but so that I can help others. And I know sometime that's going to come to an end, but I think because of my faith base, I'm not worried about dying. I think I'm so fortunate to be in that space. But I've decided, with this now, this is another challenge. So what am I going to do to respond? And I'm on this kick that there's so much joy in life, but we're so busy, we don't see it. We don't take time to find it. And it's all around us. And I started thinking, there's so many beautiful people doing so many wonderful things. And I see that especially in all the healthcare workers I deal with. And so I'm a jokester. I try to pep them up. But I've started, when I communicate with friends by email, business friends, folks I'm working with on charitable activities, community activities, I always try to put in a sentence or two about how precious they are, how they are meaningful to me in my life, and I appreciated that they're in my life. And so many people call back and say, oh, thank you, nobody ever told me that. But we could all be doing that. We could be spreading this joy. So what my mission is kind of to help people find the joy in life. And as miserable as things are, diagnosis is not good. It's joyful because it's brought me to a new level, something else I can do to try to make the world a better place. So, and I feel just so blessed to have that attitude, to have that opportunity. And the other thing, I have a book that's called Life is Messy. It's written by a man named Matthew Kelly. And it's about the human condition and, the craziness going on in our lives and craziness going on in our world. And it talks about needing to slow down, needing to find time, needing to express appreciation, needing to convey gratitude, needing to do little random acts of kindness for our neighbors and friends. And if we all were to just begin doing that, we would really change the face of the earth. We would change the societal mentality, which is absolutely crazy these days with what's going on in public life. But I pray for those folks. I do. And they need our prayers. That's something, again, that we can do to try to make the world a better place.
And so I just want to give people this overarching view of life is that your mission started in the 8th grade. And maybe sooner than that, the things you had learned from your family, that when you were a young man, you felt a calling to make the world different. And not only helping the world, but you were also very interested in that introspection of understanding how George Degnon's life, which has to be intentional. I think you do have to write things down and dream and have visions. You were 14, and now I look at you at 82, and I think the intentionality of your life and your quest of a journey and a path that's driven by, in your case, a divine faith of something bigger, of something that can call out not only the best in us, but almost just be an opportunity to serve. Your entire life has been like that. And step by step, you've used that for goodness and kindness, and it's come from a sense of priorities and purpose and mission and vision. And it has been an absolute joy to know you, because our website wouldn't let you buy a book, and I was able to send you a book, and we've become great friends, and you've become a mentor to me, and certainly an inspiration to thousands of people. And so as we kind of wrap up this conversation, what would you say to 14-year-olds, and what would you say to the rest of the world as to how life can be different? What would you say to 14-year-olds?
I would say dream out of the box, think wild, and you'll get ideas that seem like, well, look at today. I mean, curing cancer. Somebody had that in mind, and now we're about there. So with the Hubble, not the Hubble, the Bell, what is it? Webb telescope. I mean, we have no limitation on what we could accomplish as a society, as a people. And I say dream, write out your dreams, lay them out, and you'll be drawn toward them in your life's work. What I have found so fascinating, I committed my life to helping people when I was young. And when I left the seminary, I didn't give up on that. And I've been guided in terms of my employment and my work through life. I always had work where that was what I was doing, helping people. I had an opportunity to work with the American Academy of Pediatrics. And back in the 1960s, health insurance for children started after the 14th day of life. So when a family had a baby, if the baby was sick, insurance didn't cover that sickness until then. So families were being financially crippled because of a sick child. And I was with the academy, and that was one of the areas of my responsibility. We called it third-party payments, insurance for children. And we just thought that was not right. And I was with a group of physicians and the staff person, and we came up with a plan to create a model piece of legislation that we would give to every state legislature and ask the states to enact a law that said, in our state, health insurance for children will start at birth on a family policy. And we did that, and in 2 or 3 years, that was enacted in every state. So that was a big change, and that was, again, helping people. That was fulfillment of my own personal mission. And then as I went on, the academy asked me to go to Washington and start a government relations program and be the Washington office person for the academy. And I said, well, what is my charge? What do you want me to do? And you know what my charge was, what the pediatricians told me? George, go make the world a better place for kids. So that was my job. Can you believe it? So what did I do with it? You all know the safety caps on aspirins and prescriptions. That was the first bill I got enacted in 1970. And New Year's Eve of 1970, the White House called home. I was out and getting something at the store for New Year's Eve. And it was the president's health advisor saying, President Nixon wants George to know he just signed his bill. So talk about a thrill for a young guy, you know. In 1970, I was 30 years old and director of a Washington office. So the Poison Prevention Packaging Act. Another big problem was lead poisoning for children, eating paint chips. I was the one that, well, the Congressman Ryan from New York was the lead, but I was the main lobbyist to push the elimination of lead from paint. And it took us 6 years to get that enacted, but we finally got a bill where Congress said no more lead in paint to protect our children. The safety caps I mentioned, back in 1970, 365 people died a year. A child a day died from accidental poisonings. And with the safety caps, now there's about 4 or 5 deaths a year from accidental poisonings. So that means there's about 360 people each year that live beyond childhood because they're not victims of accidental poisonings. And over 50 years, it's 18,000 people are alive today because of that particular piece of legislation. So again, I'm so happy to have been a part of that, but it kind of shows the legacy of being goal-driven, being focused. The whole issue of regional newborn intensive care programs, sick little newborns and the NICUs we have all over the country, that program was on the books, but it was really never implemented. And when I was in Washington, I took hold of it because neonatology was a growing field at the time. We were doing more and more. There was a reluctance for us to develop these newborn programs because the thinking was that why are we doing this? We're going to just be raising these vegetables. These children will have no useful life. And in fact, that was not true at all. We learned that very, very sick newborns can be normal, healthy adults. And so I really got into it in fed that program. I made it an appropriations issue. Every year I went and asked for millions and millions more than was in the budget. And we grew that program to be a nationwide program now. So I feel I have a little bit of, comfort in knowing that that was something I influenced. And then the Consumer Product Safety Commission is a big program now. It started when kids were getting their heads caught in the slats in their cribs and dying. And out of that, and a whole host of other kinds of insults that children were victims of because of products. I worked on creating the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and we were the principal lobby, the Academy of Pediatrics and myself were the principal agents to push that enactment. And now that commission is up and running, it's effective, it's protecting people every day. I'm so proud of that. So I can just go on and on immunization programs, more money for vaccines. When AIDS and HIV came along, I was representing state health departments in Congress. And state health departments, we came up with the concept of creating alternative test sites, because back in those days, we had a test to screen blood to tell if somebody had HIV or not. But the only place the test was being done was at the blood banks to screen donors. And the blood banks were worried that, with a false negative, the blood supply could get contaminated. So they came to us to come up with a solution. And I was, an actor in that whole project to develop the alternative testing sites through state health departments and anonymous testing and postcards and all that stuff. So I've had a very rich, full, wonderful life. And yet it's all been, from my perspective, to try to help others. So I feel especially blessed. And I say that, every crisis in life, every major speed bump you hit, it's an opportunity to reflect and improve. It's an opportunity to take the advantage and be proactive in your situation, whatever that might be.
And so, what's your message for others hearing this story? I mean, it's overwhelming to me of the things that you've done at an international scale, with Puerto Rico, at a national scale, saving lives, and with pediatrics and with kindness. What is your encouragement to people that maybe haven't done what you've done as far as the introspection? What advice would you give them?
Well, I think, again, I don't want to sound like a hollow, but I would say get the 7-minute life and get focused. Decide what's important to you. In terms of what you could do, practice random acts of kindness every day. Do something unusual. Help a neighbor. See a piece of paper in the neighborhood, pick it up, throw it in the trash. Don't let it just float. Caring, just little caring. I mean, it's the little things in life that bring richness. It's the things we give to others that bring fulfillment. We can make $1 million and we're unhappy. We want $2 million. We make $10 million. We want $20 billion. What are we going to do with it? I mean, I'm not opposed to the capitalistic system. I think it's a very good, that's our bread and butter. But it doesn't have to be at the expense of a neighbor. And if you're successful and life is good, if the fella next door needs a sandwich, buy him a sandwich for lunch once in a while. We have the beggars here in the street corners, and I'm active in St. Vincent de Paul, and we help folks like that. I always give them a St. Vincent card so they have a number to call, and I give them $5 so they can get that sandwich they might need. It's just little things, But I think, for young people, my story is extraordinary, and I have to admit that. I can't expect anybody to try to replicate the joys and the pleasures and the challenges and the satisfactions I've had. But it all starts with the little things. It starts with knowing how you want to spend your time, what you want to try to accomplish in life, and gratitude, the attitude of gratitude. I'm thankful, Lord, for what you gave me. Help me to help my neighbor. And in that quiet time, you'll think of little things, maybe mow their lawn, if they're sick, maybe bring them lunch or something like that. They need something from the store, be willing to go get it for them. That will fill that person's life with joy. And that's what we should be all about. We should be looking for joy and spreading joy. That would be my message.
Well, I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you. And I'm going to be adding Georgia's actual mission and priorities and purpose and life goals to this video. George, you've made a great difference in the world. I thank you for all of the things that you've done. I thank you for being my friend and the kindness and inspiration you've brought to me. And what a blessing to know you. That's all I can say. And I just hope that the people listening to this will be willing to text a friend and just say, I'm thinking of you, or I care about you, or can I buy you a sandwich? So thank you for being part of the 7-Minute Life, and thank you for being part of my life.
Well, Allyson, I have to say the same to you. I mean, you've been an inspiration to me, the way you've put all this material together. Your life purpose is now helping so many people. And I just feel so fortunate to be one of those. So thank you. And thank you for personal friendship too, the many, many ways that you help me in little things. So thank you.
Well, it's been my pleasure. So George, thanks for everything. And I look forward to hearing now what the next long-term goals are for you. So we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.